Welcome back to Round the Cauldron, where we talk theology, philosophy, and everyday life as a modern witch. Today, I had the pleasure of sitting down with two wonderful women who are also Christian witches. They offer their perspective on their path, and we even talk about the bashing that goes on between Christians and witches and pagans. Before we move into the interview, I have a special announcement. A couple of you have asked me about getting a P.O. box, and I now have a P.O. box. So you can send me letters, postcards, whatever you want. I will try to respond to each and every one of you. Please be respectful. I know there are some people out there who give out their P.O. boxes and then they get like Bibles and stuff. Yeah, I don't want that. If you'd like to send me something, my P.O. box will be in the show notes. It is also going to be right here. It is P.O. Box 2191, Seffner, Florida. That is SEFF as in Foxtrot, NER 33583. I look forward to whatever you have to send to me, and I look forward to responding to you as well. So without further ado, we can move on into the interview. So thank you so much for joining me today. I have Asacia and Kat on, and we are going to be having sort of an open, candid conversation about Christian witchcraft from some Christian witches. So thank you so much, Asacia and Kat, for being here with me today.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us. Thanks for having us.
So, I don't know who wants to go first up and maybe give a little bit of information on who you are, your practice. I guess I should mention that I found you both on Twitter. I asked if anybody would be interested in speaking about Christian witchcraft, and you both responded. So now that that's out of the way, who would like to give sort of an introduction about themselves?
I
Um,
can go.
Okay.
Um, so I haven't been into the craft very long, so I'm not super like advanced or anything, but I was just having some really hard troubles in my life, and I've always been religious, like growing up and everything, my whole family, and it just didn't really feel like it wasn't not enough, but I felt like there was more and I wanted to explore everything that I could. And I really enjoy practicing, even though I haven't done very much. Really nice to me.
Okay, well, everybody has to start somewhere. It still takes courage to step out of your comfort zone. What about you, Kat?
so I also haven't been practicing a terribly long time. I started actually practicing the craft about a year ago, a little bit over a year now. I always have been interested in um witchcraft and the occult, and I've always been a Christian from birth, and when like my exploring and looking into both, I noticed a lot of similarities between the two, and I decided on my own that I was going to mix the two together. And then after doing some more research, I found out that it's actually a thing to do the craft and be Christian. So I was like, oh, okay, cool.
But it sounds like you both you came from a little bit of a different place, but you have found a common path. Um, so how did you end up finding witchcraft? Was it through like pop culture or online, like Twitter and social media? Or was it something that maybe you were just drawn to and you found a word for it?
For me, honestly, I think it started with my interest in Ouija boards. I got one when I was 13. Um, my grandmother, she practiced and I didn't know because my mom didn't like any of that stuff.
Hmm.
But she got me my first Ouija board, and from there I kind of explored more into it. Um, they're not entirely like linked or anything, but it was just something so different from what I was used to that it got me into other things.
That's so interesting. I think you're the first person that I've heard say, "Oh, I got into witchcraft because I got a Ouija board."
Yeah.
I I got into it through the pop culture side of
Hmm.
it. I used to watch a lot of anime growing up, and there's like, Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor Sakura, like a lot of the old school magical girl ones.
Hmm.
And from then I just remember like being younger and like, oh yeah, I have this spell, I have that spell. And that's kind of like what sparked my I know that like sparked my interest really early on. And
Hmm.
then learning more about like my family's background and like the herbal medicines and mixing and the different superstitions. So that's kind of always been there. And then I think I sort of evolved from that.
I think a lot of people are like that too, finding witchcraft through pop culture because for myself, I grew up, I watched a little bit of Sailor Moon, but my thing was more of like Charmed and Buffy and Practical Magic and different shows like that. So definitely you're not alone in finding witchcraft through pop culture. It is very popular.
Charmed Charmed was my favorite show. I was
Yes,
like, I loved it so much.
I have watched every single episode of every single season at least twice.
Oh, yeah, I would like always if it was on, I was in front of the TV. Just
It, yep.
always.
Um, so I guess one of the first things that I really want to talk about is how witchcraft and Christianity can work together. Because as someone who is on the outside looking in, I have a very surface level understanding of Christianity. I went to church as a kid, off and on. I never really read the Bible. I knew like the Ten Commandments and different things like that. But there was always sort of this understanding, in air quotes, understanding that Christianity and witchcraft were opposites, that they couldn't work together. And now being online and seeing the variety of people and the way that they practice their craft, I obviously know now that that's not necessarily the case. How how do the two work together for you? Because of what is it? That Bible verse, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, or whatever it is. Um, See, my surface level understanding is very apparent right now. But how do they work together for you? I hope that question makes sense.
Yeah, it does because
Yeah.
I grew up like strictly Christian, like my whole family and all that. So like my mom didn't even want me to have a Ouija board or anything like that. She was like, "You're gonna get into like bad stuff," and I always my own thing. Hershey, it's okay. Keep down. It's okay. Come on. But I was kind of nervous because she had always been that way about it. Um, and I definitely messed up like a few times. Just I thought I had practiced a little bit before, but I was like, it just doesn't seem like it's gonna do anything. It feels weird,
Hmm.
and it just wasn't what I was used to. But after really like opening up to it and doing everything properly and taking my time, like simple things like when I pray, it's to God, it's to the universe, deities. I work with all of it, and that's what feels better than just being closed off to one thing. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, I think it makes sense. And
Yeah.
and
I
what about
think
for you, Kat?
I think mine it's sort of the similar thing. I view it as God is the creator. He created everything: the moon, the sun, the stars, the planets, the crystals, the rocks, the gems that we use. He created all of that. And in the beginning of the Bible, when he created it, he gave man dominion over all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So why would he give us all of these things and then not let us use it? And even um, I I don't remember the exact verses because numbers really confuse me in that way, but I remember the stories.
That's okay.
And there's quite a few stories in the Bible where they actually use, if you really think about the story, the North Star that they follow to find Christ. That is astrology.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a point in time where there's a battle, and I believe, I don't remember who was in the battle, but there's a battle in the Bible where the Lord told him, I will stop the sun in the sky. And the sun stopped, and they were able to have, I think it was like 3 days worth of daylight. But there are all these signs of them following different signs in in the earth and in the sky. Even the giving of an offering, that was something that was consistent throughout the Bible. So I find it sort of interesting that you wouldn't, that something that was so apparent in the Bible would be closed off to us now. So that's
Mm.
kind of how I view it. He created it and we're allowed to use it. So I use it as a way of connecting to him.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for me. Like, if he made it, so why would he make it for you not to be able to take advantage of it, right?
Yeah.
So where where do you think, and this is just purely speculation and a question that popped in my head, um, where do you think it came into that witchcraft and um, the offerings and all of that got tied back to the devil? Because when I was a kid and I was first exploring Wicca and witchcraft, I had told my mom about it, and she was like, "Well, no, that's devil worship. That's the work of the devil. Absolutely not. Like, you can't do that." But is it though? Like, really, is it though? So where do you think that came from?
Um, I think quite a bit of it, like um, reading throughout like the Old Testament mostly, and listening to different pastors speak on certain things that they act that was written in the Old Testament.
Hmm.
A lot of it was put there to to differentiate the Israelites from the other tribes.
Mm.
So that's sort of my understanding of it. Some of the practices that the other tribes would do that weren't following God specifically, those rules were put in place so that they could stand out from um, those other tribes.
Okay, so
That
sort of
is my
like
understanding.
sort of like a like it would only be the devil's work if you're not doing it in God's name.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um,
Get
did you
that.
have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, because like I think it's also a problem within the religious communities where, you know, people use certain parts to justify their own um, discriminations like homophobia and all that.
Hmm.
And
So it's
I
just like I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think it's just that like they think if you're not doing what the Bible means to them, and what the religious community means to them, then you're just doing something wrong. Like it can't be right because their view is the only thing that can be.
That sounds about right. In my experience
Yeah.
anyway. With anything else.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the Bible's been translated so many times. There are so many things that are lost in all of those translations.
True. I think there was one person. I'll see if I can find the link and I'll put it in the description and in the show notes, of someone who has studied several different translations over like decades and found that um, where it's talking about like man shall not lie with man and how it's not talking about homosexuality, it's actually talking about something else.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see if I can find a link for that. So are you both what you would consider out to the any non-witch Christians, be it online or offline, or is it a practice that you generally keep to yourself?
Mine, it's half out, half in. So like my immediate family doesn't know.
Okay.
Most of the people in my church don't know, but some of my outside friends who aren't in the craft, but are what I guess you consider Christian, they do know.
Okay.
So I guess the more open-minded Christians know that I am, but the more traditional ones don't.
What
Um,
about you, Asacia?
I rebelled against my parents so hard they don't even ask anymore. I mean, I still go to church, so I think she knows that I'm still, at least still like mostly Christian since I still go. Um, Other than that, she doesn't really ask questions.
I relate to that a lot. Like some of the
Mm-hmm.
things that some of the things that I have done and that I do and believe, my parents, even though I'm almost 30, they're just like, we don't even bother asking anymore and we don't bother understanding because it's not, it's just they don't care as long as I'm happy and, obviously not hurting anybody. So I really relate to that statement.
Yeah. Like for now, they're just like, you really still like collecting rocks and candles, don't you? I'm
Right?
like,
All the pretty
yeah.
things.
Like, yeah, yeah, no problem.
My boyfriend thinks it's kind of cute. Like, he doesn't really know what I do, but I yelled at him for lighting one of my spell candles, and he was like, it's just a candle. I was like, it's not even scented. You don't need to touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're comfortable, would you mind sharing like a daily practice that you have or how you stay connected basically to your craft and your faith?
I still pray every day. Um, it was what I was taught to do, and I still do it just in a different way. Um, I I'm really new. I like practicing new things, and I try to read a lot about everything because I'm just so interested in the whole thing,
Hmm.
and I don't want to be not like held back necessarily to one thing. I like to try to do everything that resonates with me as much as I can. So that's just where I'm at right now.
Okay. Do you have like a specific prayer that you say, or is it just a general prayer like you're just talking to God?
Um, it's usually general to not only God but like the universe and guardian angels. Because I started learning more about guardian angels specifically first, and on Christmas actually, my boyfriend's stepmom gave me a reading after I'd gone through something kind of hard for me, and she pulled 6 guardian angel cards in my reading, and
Oh
she
my
was
goodness.
shocked. And she was like, I can't even believe this. Like, you got 6 guardian angel cards. That's incredible. And so I really like exploring more with that too, because I had to open myself up to that more, and it really helped me.
What about you, Kat? If you're comfortable sharing.
I do pray as well every day. Um, it's more of like a general prayer to God, the universe, my ancestors, my guardian angels, my guides. Um, I also have a little incense that I mix together and I will light that. It's like right in my room, so I kind of light it. It's on my little altar setup. I light that, and that's sort of like my way of cleansing for the day and giving an offering um, of just peace and sort of clearing the energy for the day.
Cool. It sounds like there are definitely commonalities between both of your practices and even my own, because I worship Bridget, who is an Irish goddess, and prayer definitely is a daily part of my practice. And I find that a lot of pagans um, shy away from that term because of a lot of their shadows with what they dealt with in churches or um, like heavily, I don't want to say Christian, but heavily like evangelical families where it's very, um, you know, witchcraft is absolutely a no-go. Um, but definitely, I really like that you both talk so openly about prayers and who you pray to, because prayer is definitely a big thing for me as well. So, someone had asked in my Discord if you work the closely with the Christian God or angels, and if you recognize any other deity. Not necessarily worship or work with, but I guess what I'm trying to say is like, is the Christian God still the only God in your belief systems?
For me, I see it as they're all they're all completely valid and connected to, I guess what you would say, what we consider the Christian God.
Okay,
Um,
so like for example, Bridget would be an aspect of the Christian God. Is that what you mean?
yes,
Okay, I just want to
kind of.
make sure I'm
I
understanding.
see them more like, I guess I would see them more like as angels.
Okay.
I think is, I don't exactly know the proper word that I'm looking for, but the closest I can think of is like they're angels or um, subsidiaries to it, to
Okay.
the Christian God. Not really beneath him, but they're the gods of the different nations and first people and different uh, areas. Because looking at them, every uh, every aspect of the pagan community, whether it's Irish or um, Norse, uh, Chinese, African, the different god systems that they have all govern the same or similar principles or elements.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same with like the angels as well. So I see them as they all work together. They're all, I guess, yeah, they all work together. It's
Okay.
just they each govern a different area of the earth
So
or
maybe a good
universe.
analogy would be like um, the Christian God is like the boss, right? And all of these, the other gods are like assistant managers. And then we are the people.
Yeah,
Like kind of like a I can't say that word, a hierarchy of deities.
yeah, kind of. Yeah, kind of like that.
Okay. I think I understand where you're going with that. Okay.
Okay.
Just want to make sure that I got it straight in my head, because if I can understand it, then anybody can understand it.
Okay, so yeah, it's kind of like that, like a hierarchy.
Okay, so you don't say that they don't exist. It's
No.
uh, like you have the Christian God and then the rest of them, that they are there and you acknowledge that they're there.
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe that they're 100% existent and real and have their own powers.
Okay. Cool. What about you, Asacia?
I do agree. I think the Christian God is equal to all of them, and um, they just all serve their own purpose to the person worshiping them.
Those are really interesting thoughts, because it reminds me of kind of like how deity is viewed within Wicca, because you have a god and a goddess, and then you see some Wiccans pick out like a matron or a patron, or they will pray to these deities that, they don't necessarily have a relationship with, because they view them as aspects of the one divine source. So it's interesting that there are similarities there between how you both view the pagan gods and the Christian God, versus how some soft polytheists view deities as well.
Yeah, I think when I was doing like my research and like, well, not really research, but more my reading, and noticed that, and I was like, they're really similar.
They
Why is there
are.
so much, like, why is there so much hatred between the two? Like, we're the same. Like, we're basically the same. It's just we use a different word to describe things.
Right. Um, so going into that conversation, um, do you both still hold the concepts of heaven and hell? Are those still parts of your belief system, or is it something different?
I do believe in both
Okay.
aspects still.
I also believe in both. Um, I don't necessarily think it's just like heaven has God and all the angels and like, the stereotypes about them. They're probably a lot different from what we might learn about them generally, but pretty much similar. They're still there.
Okay. Um, and then someone else had asked what the role of the Bible plays in your practice, because I'm somewhat familiar with Psalms, I believe is how you say it. And there are people who say that Psalms is just a book of spells, which I have no knowledge on any of that, so I don't want to misspeak. Um, do you either of you know any information on the Psalms, or do you use Psalms in your practice? How does all of that play together for you guys?
Sorry, my kitten's knocking around a water bottle.
You're okay.
I think they're totally right. I never realized it, but a lot of them, you know, just like manifesting and spell work, they feel like you're just reinforcing something and it makes you feel better almost. Like prayers too. They are just kind of uplifting, and I do think they help with manifestation in the same way. They just have their own specific name to them.
Okay.
I see them the same way as Asacia sees it. They're useful in learning how people back then, or the people in the Bible, used to communicate and how they communicated with God and the angels, and using it as a tool of manifestation and also guidance as to how I move forward in my practice. Um, I do definitely believe that Psalms is a spell book, um, because like reading through it, it's like, huh, okay. It's definitely like really something that is very like really aids in manifestation. And even within my church, at least, I do see them like say different verses in Psalms or different chapters in the book of Psalms, um, using it as, they don't call it a manifestation tool, but using it in the same way that people in the craft would use manifestation verses or mantras.
Hmm. So I guess I should ask really quick just to make it clear for myself. Do you do either of you have like a specific denomination of Christianity that you subscribe to, or is it just a general Christianity?
Um, I I don't know if I really align myself with it because I do, or if I align myself with it because that's just what I was born into and that's all I really know.
Mm-hmm.
But I do identify with the Pentecostal um, church, and one of the main features of the Pentecostal church is speaking in tongues. And I guess to quote the stereotype would be the catching the Holy Spirit,
Okay.
that aspect of it.
Okay. And what about you, Asacia?
Um, I take what resonates basically, just like how you do with certain things in witchcraft. I take what resonates and what feels right, and then kind of just leave out the rest, like the toxic things where, the homophobia and everything, because that is what made me try to get away from it too, all the judgment that can come along with it. Um,
Right.
but other than that, like church and the prayers, it feels right, so I use it along with everything else.
Okay. So you're
Yeah.
more of like an eclectic Christian.
Yes.
That makes sense. Okay. I wasn't sure if that would be like the right term, but it is a term that I know that we use in the witchcraft community when you don't really have a specific path or tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Um, so within the pagan and witchcraft communities online, there tends to be a lot of, I think earlier, Kat, you said hatred um, between the two groups of like pagans and witches versus the Christians, which is, I think, fairly ridiculous on a surface level. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so are you both in the communities online, like the witchcraft communities online?
I am on
Um,
Twitter, but Twitter's pretty much the only thing I use.
Okay.
I am on Twitter and Instagram. I do a little bit of the witch talk community, but it's a lot, so I don't go on there that much.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'd say mostly the Twitter and the Instagram side of it.
Okay. Now, the only reason that I ask is because I wanted to get your opinion or your thoughts. And someone else asked this too in my Discord about um, how you feel about witches and pagans that really harp on Christianity and, talk bad about it, or um, do try to steer people away from it. I've seen that too. I personally, I don't agree with it. I have my own sort of shadows and uh, not necessarily traumas, but my own issues that I am actively working through because of my experiences with the church and stuff growing up. But that's my own personal crap that I have to move through. How do you feel about that happening? And what do you think that we can do together as like two different communities to work through that and get rid of it? I know that's a really heavy question. So if you if you're not comfortable answering or you need a second to think,
That
that's
was like
okay.
one of the first things I saw when I joined, like when I followed all of the people that I do to learn about witchcraft was um a mutual that I really like and I learned a lot from her, but she had uh been tweeting a lot about just bashing Christianity. And I made my own tweet and I was like, I understand where people come from completely because there are a lot of things wrong within that community. But just like with every religion, you should try to not just generalize everyone and everything about it.
Hmm.
And like I said, I think it's okay to resent it for trauma purposes and everything like that. Like, I understand. It's definitely hard, though, being both and seeing a lot of people in the witch community resent it so much because it feels not directed at me, but like I do it. So it just hurts my feelings a little bit, but it's okay.
I completely am. I'm with you there. I think if we can't look at it objectively and see like the history of Christianity and what happened in the name of Christ and things from way back when, you can't really grow if you don't acknowledge that it happened. But at the same time, in the modern day, like the crusades aren't a thing anymore. And I think that we could come together through commonalities and understanding with each other and not hate on each other anymore.
Yeah, I think it feels so weird seeing like being in both and then seeing both bash each other. It's like, but we can live in harmony. Look at me or look at Asacia. Like it can live in harmony. It's totally okay.
Right. Like
Um,
you're not alone, you're not an outlier. There is an entire community of Christian witches. There's an entire community of
yeah,
Christo pagans. So I mean,
yeah,
like you're not some lone person just doing what you want. It's a whole community.
exactly. And I do think a lot of the trauma that people face within the church is definitely um, a huge part of why they bash out against it so much.
Hmm.
Um, but I think it's also important too to realize that the trauma didn't happen because of the church, but because of the people that go there. And I know a very common saying within my family, our culture is even the devil goes to church sometimes. So, not everybody that you meet in church is gonna be someone that is actually reading the Bible or following the good, non judgmental parts of the Bible. They're just picking and choosing the parts that they like, if they even pick and choose the parts that they like. I
Right.
think separating the church from its people or from the bad people will probably help people not demonize Christianity on a whole.
Just like when you first maybe learn about the craft, like you can choose, like, you can be an eclectic witch or green witch, and there's a lot of different titles. So, like, when you pick a church, pick a religion, not all of them are going to be good or fit for you. And it's not necessarily the church, it's how it feels to you. And it's like she said, the people in it.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Those are very valid, very good points. Because there have been some churches that I have gone to where I'm just like, I don't like it here. And it has nothing to do with, the church itself. It's more of like the energy of the room and the people. And that
Mm-hmm.
there are some churches today where I'm like, yeah, I'll go to church. I like that place. It's cool because it's about the energy of the people there and not necessarily, uh, following the Bible to the T, taking it 100% literally, like some people like to do.
Yeah.
And, I one of the whole reasons of me wanting you guys to come on is because of the disparity between the communities and how you have some people say, absolutely not, Christians can't be witches, coming from both sides, the Christians and the witches. And then both sides again, they're like, no, that's a valid path. And it's very ostracizing, I would think, um, for anybody following a Christian witch path because you kind of have a foot in both paths. And I would imagine that sometimes it would be really hard to find out where you fit. Is that,
Yeah.
does that resonate?
Yeah.
Well, you will always fit with me. Like, you're welcome
Awesome.
here.
Awesome. It's
So go ahead.
I was gonna say it's just so weird being like like I said earlier, half out but not fully. Where it's like some people know, but then those that you're kind of closest to, like those that are on the Christian side, don't
Hmm.
fully know everything, but those that are on the craft side know everything. So it's like, ah, feel so torn.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like it's important to you and your path um, to be completely out and open with your Christian witchcraft, if not now, eventually to the people that you care about, or is it simply a relationship between you and God?
Hmm. I have thought about eventually being out, but then I'm also thinking it is still a personal relationship
Hmm.
that is between me and God and the universe. And even Christians don't share their full relationship with God with each other. So at times I'm like, I would love to, but then at other times I'm like, I don't have to because it's personal to me.
Right. How about you, Asacia?
For me, I think the only reason I really wouldn't is just because the people that I don't share it with, I don't for a reason, just because I know that they're going to criticize me and I just don't really want to hear it.
Hmm.
Other than that, I don't really mind like being open about it. Um, it's nothing that I'm ashamed of, even though I know a lot of people do criticize it, but it's what feels right to me, and I think that's all that matters.
That sounds just about right. I mean, for me anyway. I'm not saying like, no, you're wrong. That's not what I mean. Okay, so we're coming up on almost an hour, I think, give or take. So we can go ahead and start wrapping it up. I want to leave this last few minutes as sort of like an open invitation for both of you to say whatever you feel called to say to anybody that is listening about Christian witchcraft or anything. Because I know that it's very, as we said earlier, it's ostracizing. You got both sides of it sort of fighting each other. And, I've been guilty of being like, oh man, all those Christians, they stole all of our holidays. But, as we grow as people and we grow um, more confidently in our faith and our beliefs, I think we can all work together. So I'd like to hear if if either of you have anything that you'd like to share before we go.
I think what I want to say is anyone that's interested in practicing and going down the path of Christian witchcraft or uh, Christo paganism, that it is completely valid, regardless of what either side wants to say. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Uh, if you're being led down that path, um, go for it. You can always change if you want to. It's not something that you're forced to do or that you're forced to stay committed to. And just know that there are others out there. There's a whole community of us out there. So you're more than welcome.
Beautiful. And what about you, Asacia? Do you have anything that you would like to say?
Do your own thing. Fuck everyone else. That's it feels right. Do it. Um, it'll be hard to start out because, especially if you're open about it too, I think, to like maybe a really religious family, you don't have to let them know. And it doesn't mean you're ashamed of it or anything. Just do whatever feels right. And if you don't like it, then you don't have to do it.
That's really great advice. So thank you both for sitting down and having this chat with me. I really appreciate you both, again, taking the time to come on and talk about your personal paths and Christian witchcraft in general. Maybe one day in the future we can do more of a deep dive into Christian witchcraft, because I think that would be very interesting and a very interesting conversation. But for now, this was really nice. I hope you both enjoyed sitting down and chatting as well. Would you both care to share your Twitter handles, and I can put those in the description and in the show notes?
So mine is the Lunar Witch, THEE, Lunar Witch. That is my Twitter, and I think my Instagram is the same, but I could be wrong.
That's okay. Well, we'll find it and I'll put a link.
Yeah, my Instagram is the same.
Cool.
Mine is Asacia Baby, ASACIA, and then another A because yeah, and just babe with an extra E.
All right. Well, that is all. I guess we will talk to everybody soon. Bye for now.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
So I hope you enjoyed the interview. I hope it was enlightening for you. I hope it gave you a new perspective and new things to think about. And definitely go follow them on Twitter and on Instagram. The links for their social media is in the description, and I will talk to you soon. A special thanks to my patrons over on Patreon. Thank you so much for all of your support. If you'd like to join me over on Patreon and get patron exclusive perks and content, you can do so at patreon.com/roundthecauldron.